Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's forum for the Ypsilanti City Council. My name is Nancy Shuey, and I, along with Mary Banks, are co-presidents of the League of Women Voters of the Ann Arbor area. We're very excited to be involved in Ypsilanti and in presenting these forums to you. There are 3 people, local Ypsilanti residents, who've worked so hard to bring these forums to you, and I would like you to recognize them, if you would. First is Laura Bien, Ben Miller, and Liz. They contacted the League and asked if we would partner with them on bringing these forums to you, and they attended to a million details, spent lots of time, so I'm really pleased to be working with them. The League of Women Voters is a grassroots, nonpartisan organization. Our membership is open to anyone over the age of 18, men as well as women. We invite you to join us. Membership information is available on the table on the way out or from our website, lwv@arbor.org. The League does not support candidates or parties, but one of our important goals is to assist voters in making informed choices at the polls, and thus we bring you this forum tonight so that you can do so. And at this time I'd like to invite Ben up to say a word.
Hi, my name is Ben, and I just want to say, so Fora Better Ypsi was founded in spring 2004 as the Ypsilanti Mayoral Debate Committee in order to run the Ypsilanti Mayoral Debate at the downtown Ypsi Library in July. All members are also members of the League of Women Voters of the Ann Arbor area, and Fora Better Ypsi has a focus on sponsoring Ypsilanti-oriented, nonpartisan candidates for as Nancy said, we're made up right now of me and Lindsay and Laura. And Lindsay tonight will be doing the time, and Laura is going to be moderating. But we couldn't do it without all the other volunteers who helped, and everybody else. So thanks so much to the Ypsi Senior Center and the City of Ypsi for hosting. Thanks so much to Brad Perkins of Worm Farm Recordings for filming. Thanks so much to Jamie Berlin for helping with note cards, which I will explain. Thanks so much to Jesse Miller for doing the sound. And thanks so much to Fritz Passot for general helping with everything. And of course, thanks so much to Nancy Shuey and the whole League of Women Voters of the Ann Arbor area for overall guidance and just helping us put all this together. And also thanks to the press for being here. I believe somebody's here from Washington On Now. And Matt Durr is here from MLive. And just so people know, there are bathrooms around towards the side. And the way the note cards will work is we want to get participation from the audience. So around halfway through, we'll be passing out note cards, and the moderator or people will be choosing audience questions from this. And so without further ado.
Thanks, Ben. The forum for tonight's event will consist of a round of introductions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce themselves, followed by 10 questions. Each candidate will have a chance to respond in random order. I'll call on people for 1 minute per question. And then we'll go to note cards from the audience, and we'll wind up at about 8:45. So right now, why don't we start with introductions? Let's start with Ms. Brown, please.
Hi, I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and thank the League of Women Voters and Ypsi now for having us. My name is Nicole Brown. I'm a graduate of Eastern Michigan University and almost lifelong resident of Ypsilanti. I graduated with a major in communication and social work, and I'm currently a social worker doing wraparound facilitation. I worked extensively with community-based work as a teen up until now, and currently I'm in the community, starting with a youth group called Ypsilanti Youth Empowered to Act that was housed by Eastern Michigan University, and also worked doing community youth mapping in the community with young people and working with a lot of mentors and other community members just for a better Ypsilanti and a better community. And so I'm thankful to be here, and I'm thankful you all are here to hear me talk.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Yeah, my name is Sigrid Melvin. I've been a resident of Ypsi for about 9 years and came here not by choice but by destiny. I've been happy here and I want to make it a better place because there's a little help we need from our government locally and the big guys, and especially for seniors. I live in a senior building right downtown and we have questions and we need answers. And for the past 8 years I've been seeking answers. I did get the intersection done on Hamilton, Michigan Avenue. So we're just, well, in pushy, I guess. But there's things that we haven't got done yet, and we need to get them done now. And as I told the young people that come to our house at Ypsilanti Health Association, they teach us how to eat healthy in there. Well, if we don't get things right in our old age, otherwise the young people are going to have to do the same problem. So we want to get them solved. Thank you.
Mr. Robb?
Yeah, my name is Brian Robb, and for the past 8 years I've been fortunate to serve many of you in the 3rd Ward. I've lived in Ypsilanti for the past 19 years. I live up on East Cross Street in the historic East Side Neighborhood Association. I was the president of the historic East Side Neighborhood Association. We did some wonderful things in the park. Under my leadership, we did an incredible rain garden up there at Old Luna Lake. Done some interesting things in the community, started something called Wireless Ypsi. It's become one of the largest free wireless networks in the United States and perhaps the world. Mr. Durr is online live blogging as a result of that. Very excited to be able to come here and speak tonight. Look forward to the questions, and I look forward to telling you all the great things we've accomplished in the past 8 years and where we're headed as a city.
Thank you. Mr. Weston?
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you to For a Better Ypsi. And thank you to the Senior Center for allowing us to use this facility tonight. And thanks to everybody who came out, many of my supporters, my family, my encouragers, and just the city in general. I appreciate every single one of you. And without you, I would not want to do this. I've been an Ypsilanti area resident, excuse me, for about 12 years. I've been in the city and the historic East Side as well for a little over a year. My intent is to serve the citizens of our city. I started serving in Adams School, running YMCA programs 6 years ago. That matured into a love for the kids, which matured into my love for the city, which matured into me being here today before you, asking for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Weston. All right, let's start with the first question, probably the most pressing problem that faces Ypsi right now, which is Water Street. Question number 1. We're going to start with Ms. Melvin. The city's Water Street debt generates an ongoing annual structural deficit of $1.7 million. Debt payments are currently projected to continue until at least the year 2031. How would you address this?
Well, in the first place, we have to find out who owns it and why does the city have to pay for it. But if somebody else owns it, we should turn it over to the bank, whoever owns it. Our second chance is we call ourselves Solar City, Ypsi, Solar City. When I moved here, it was cool city all over town. We should put solar panels there and sell the energy to DTE to at least pay for that property.
Thank you, Ms. Melvin.
You're welcome.
And next, let's hear from Ms. Brown, please.
Well, as far as Water Street goes, I believe that we should utilize the space. If we have it, we've been paying for it, why not use it, build on it, and bring revenue back into the city? I know that there are local businesses who may be looking to expand, who want to spread themselves out and grow, so why not use that space to help them expand and keep the city the way that we know and love it to be, local, grassroots, and not too much dive into big brands and different things in Ypsilanti, because Ypsi locally is wonderful and beautiful, and we should kind of keep it that way. So use the businesses that we have now to create revenue to pay off the debt.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Weston?
The Water Street situation is a very dire one for our city. If we do not get this land developed here shortly, we will be in a situation that we could quite possibly face bankruptcy and state ownership. If we do not get a cohesive plan for this site as a council, as a unit, and as a council that listens to its people, that whatever development comes is going to be something that we want, and that we want not for now, but for forever. Because the development at this site is something that isn't going to be temporary and go away. It's something that is here as part of our legacy. We deserve great things for this site. To be able to get to those things, we need to have a vision that is common amongst council members, so we can step into that and attract the developers that we want and that we deserve.
Thank you. And Mr. Robb?
So this is 1 minute, just so I can take, okay. This is a two-part question. We do have a plan for addressing the debt. The number one thing we're doing, and it's what I saw the city manager walk in, and I keep telling him every time I see him, this is his number one job, this is his only job. By May of 2016, we will have the first opportunity to refinance the bonds. And so what we need to do is we need to come up with $4 million worth of cash, and that's through either land sales, either through efficiencies in city services, or not deficit, through Jesus, okay. We need to come up with $4 million in order to prepay down the loan. We can take $600,000 off of that debt. And then we need to work on the rest of the structural debt, and that includes reducing police and fire overtime. It includes increasing parking revenue. It includes getting more fire protection grant money. We adopted this plan when we did the budget this past year, and that's how we're going to get the $1.7 million.
Thank you, Mr. Robb. Question 2 touches on the same subject with a little different angle. On the 38-acre Water Street property, the rec center will occupy 4.1 acres, Water Street Flats Housing Development will occupy 3.14 acres, and Family Dollar will occupy 0.85 acres. What is your vision for the remaining 30 acres? Why don't we start with Mr. Weston?
My vision for the remaining acreage is that we would get a developer to come in and develop condo units for a large portion of the back of the property that would be riverside facing. We can do up to 6 stories at that area, and I do believe currently that we have the market that can sustain that from a purchasing standpoint. On the front side of Michigan Avenue, I'd like to see first floor retail and second and third floor apartments or office spaces, which is also very feasible. There is a good demand for general office space in the area due to the saturation in Ann Arbor, and I feel we can meet that need here in Ypsilanti. Again, we need a cohesive plan as a city council to be able to pull that off and get the developers that we need, and we don't currently have that.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Well, in 1968, I lived in San Antonio, Texas, and the river was going only back and forth. So for the hemisphere, they made it so the river could go all around it, and they could take people on boats all around it. And what they did is put in little shops and restaurants. The boats going across one side, they had an outdoor theater. That's what I would like to see down there by the river. You might have to dig the river a little deeper and make it wider, but that would be a nice attraction to come downtown Ypsi. You know, it's not just another business, not another retail shop. So.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
I think that I would like to see whatever, the people in the community want to see. We've kind of already established what we want to put there, so why not get the voices of the people and the community members to see what they would like to see in that remaining area? That way we're meeting the needs of everyone and not just the needs that we believe as a council are to be met in that area.
Thank you. Mr. Weston? Or Mr. Robb, I'm sorry.
Ms. Ypsilanti's not here, but I can tell that she's grinding her teeth. Whenever someone says we don't have a cohesive plan, it just sends shivers down her spine. We actually have a very cohesive plan for the Water Street development, and Mr. Weston articulated a lot of exactly what that plan is. If you go to the city's website, on the Water Street page is what we shop to all of our developers. That's exactly it. First floor retail, mixed-use development on the Michigan Avenue frontage, and then we have varying levels of residential, high-intensity rental units as it goes back to the river, going down towards townhouses and things like that. So there is a very cohesive plan adopted by City Council, being shopped around by the city manager and our planning staff.
Thank you. All right, next question also deals with a very troubling problem facing the new candidates. Question number 3. For fiscal year 2012, 36.5% of the city budget spent on employee payroll costs went to pay for fire and police pensions. Between 2001 and 2014, the tax millage for the police and fire pension fund rose from 1.9 to 8.3 mils, close to half of the general operating millage of 19 mils. According to an independent audit, the Ypsilanti Police and Fire Pension Fund has a $14 million deficit and is now funded at 66%. As the number of retirees increases and healthcare costs rise, how will the city cope with these expanding legacy costs? Let's hear from Mr. Robb.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is in my wheelhouse. I actually recognize this question from the mayor's debate. We've actually done an incredible amount of this. When I was first elected in 2006, we were saddled with 2 structural deficits. One was the Water Street project, and the other was the fire and police pension millage. And so in the past 4 years, what we've done with the fire and police pension millage is we have renegotiated contracts with creating a 2-tiered system for new employees, and that they have a lower multiplier as far as what their retiree pension benefits are. They have no retiree health care and issues like that. What we've also managed to do is we managed to renegotiate retiree health care for some of those retirees. We put them under Blue Care Advantage, and so far that past year, I believe it saved us around $250,000. And so, like I said, in the past 4 years, we've been working very diligently to reduce those costs, and we've made incredible strides to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Well, the pension and how it fits into the budget, I will say that I'm not as versed in, being that I'm not currently on council, but I do believe that they are doing a great job in trying to figure out ways to lower that debt and to make sure that it's feasible for years to come. I think that, there's certain things that we're not necessarily in control of, that those pensions will have to be paid in whichever tiers that Mr. Robb was talking about, but just making sure that it's in a way that is going to be beneficial to the community as a whole. I mean, it has to be done, so therefore just using what has been put in place and just continuing with that to make sure that it looks well and looks right for the community.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Well, not being able to look at the books and the numbers, I can only say, when they say pension, is it pension after 2 years you retire, or the pension after 30 years so people are employed? Because a lot of these nowadays, a lot of the employees go every 2 years someplace else, and then they collect the pension here, and pension here. So, like I said, till I see the numbers and know how long the people been there, that's one thing. Plus, the fire department and police department, they applied to the grants from the federal government, so they got little income in the police department, even hired 4 more people. So that's a question that can be juggled around and find out how long, what is pension, for how many years of work. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Mr. Weston?
I do have a general understanding of the budget, not as much as Mr. Robb, obviously, not being on council for the last 8 years. But my understanding of our general problem with all of our budget issues is that we need to have more development in our city, and we need to expand our tax base. We currently have in total near 70 acres of undeveloped land in our city that we currently own. We also own many buildings in our city that we could possibly turn over. Even things as simple as a city hall could be a great place to possibly sell to generate taxable value and income. What we need to do in my thought process is obviously pay much attention to the debt, but also pay attention to its solution and try to dwell in that instead of the problem.
Thank you. We just talked a little about fire and police pension. For question 4, let's continue to think about fire services. Nearly half of the general fund revenues, or 47%, go to pay police and fire department salaries. Many cities are exploring the financial benefits of regionalization. Should the city pursue a merger of the city and the township fire departments? Why or why not? Ms. Brown?
Well, I mean, I think that anything is possible and anything can be looked at. I mean, it's okay to sit down and, go through the pros and the cons of regionalizing them or not doing so. Because right now we have some new alliances like with the Eastern Washtenaw Safety Alliance and different things that are going on in the community for the past few months that have been working and have been working well. I don't see that personally as something that needs to be done, but there's no harm in looking into it and seeing the benefits or the cons of it.
Thank you. Mr. Weston?
Yeah, so I think that we need to work with Superior Township, Ypsilanti Township, EMU, the schools, all the entities that are around us, even Pittsfield, and all the entities that identify themselves as Ypsilanti. We need to find ways to create these bridges, and we need to do that through council, and we need to do that through staff, and we need to do that through extending an olive branch to these other places, these other entities, and finding ways to create these relationships. In my understanding of some past issues with our city as it relates to the township, there's some bridges to be mended, and I'd like to come in and help mend those bridges with extending, again, an olive branch to the township and the surrounding areas personally.
Thank you. Mr. Robb?
Yeah, when I won the Democratic primary back in 2006, shortly after that I began meeting with then Fire Chief Jim Roberts, as well as Chief Larry Morabito from the Ypsilanti Township and Stan Eldridge, a trustee from the Ypsilanti Township. And we began working on what we were talking about, automatic aid, automatic mutual aid. After I was sworn in and elected, I created a committee where it was the two people from the city as well as the two people from the township, and we met over for the next several years to work this out. That became the MABUS system, the mutual aid box alarm system. And that has Superior Township in it, it has Pittsfield Township in it, Ypsilanti Township in it, and the city of Ann Arbor as well. It's an unbelievably cooperative organization that we already have in fire services, and that came out of work that I did even before I was sworn in. So as far as merging with the city, with the township, that's always a question of control. Who's going to want control? They're going to want control. We're going to want control. These other regional opportunities seem much easier to do.
Thank you. And Ms. Melvin?
Oh, what to do with the fire department? The merger? Well, I read the newspaper and it seems like it's a good idea because they merger, but there's always somebody that loses the job. So that's the other side of the merger. And the population is growing, so I'm sure we need another fireman, another policeman. So till we shrink, I think we need to support them and look to the federal government to write more grants and get money for the fire department and the police department.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question touches on something that Ms. Brown mentioned, and also it goes into a little more depth about something that Mr. Weston was discussing. Question 5, the Washtenaw Sheriff, EMU Public Safety Officers, Ypsilanti Township, and Ypsilanti City have partnered to form the Eastern Washtenaw Safety Alliance. What other partnerships with neighborhoods, townships, the county, EMU, the state, and other entities should the city pursue? Why don't we start with Mr. Weston? You kind of get to answer this again.
Sure. So when it comes to the Ypsilanti Community Schools specifically, I think, again, extending an olive branch and trying to find ways that we can support them. When the merger happened, the city didn't have any type of specific iteration of support for the merger. They haven't spent a lot of time in those areas. I would like to bridge that gap. I've spent a lot of time in the school with our kids, and I understand that as a realtor specifically, if we don't have successful schools, we won't have a successful city, and vice versa. So we need to get on the same page as much as we can with them. Also with EMU, we have made some bridges in to the community from EMU on the DDA board and other areas. I think we need to continue to pursue those relationships and find as many win-wins as humanly possible. I'm very encouraged by the success of the program that Mr. Rutledge helped put together, and I think it's a great start for us, and I'm looking towards more opportunities.
Thank you. And Ms. Melvin?
Well, we have a population that fought for our principles, and they did their patriotic duty, but when they came home, they didn't have a job. So right now, we have to hire firemen and policemen, but some of our veterans could be hired to do the administration work and give them a chance to become a whole person again. Plus, the VA pays their salary, so it wouldn't be any cost to the city or the taxpayers.
Thank you.
That's it.
Ms. Brown?
I agree with Mr. Weston. I think that we definitely need to engage the school district. It's very important to engage our youth, as well as the teachers and the facilitators at schools, because without them, where are we going? I also agree with bridging the gap with Eastern Michigan University. I was a student there, and I lived in Ypsilanti for all of my years there, and I do think that we need a stronger bond, although that those things are being strengthened over the past few months and the past few years as well. But it's very important to engage the academic community and engage the young people and engage everyone and bring everyone together.
Thank you. And Mr. Robb?
Yeah, and we've done an incredible amount of regionalization and partnering with surrounding entities. Schools were brought up a lot. We have a school liaison officer that we work with those guys with. When we redid the Prospect Park Playground, we did joint purchasing with the schools. We have the Pittsfield Canine Unit. I mentioned the Mavis box alarm system. We have joint dispatch, AAATA, the Rutherford Pool, obviously the Washtenaw Safety Alliance, all the programs that EMU do at Hamilton Crossing, the Spark East Incubator. We have been, in the past 8 years, we've been like at the forefront of regionalization. When you look back at what we did in the 10 years prior to that, we've come a long way, and very proud of the regionalization and partnering we've done with surrounding entities.
Thank you, Mr. Robb. We're going to switch gears now and talk about a relatively newer phenomenon in our community. Number 6, there is a growing immigrant population in Ypsilanti and in Michigan. According to the Pew Research Center, approximately 22% of Michigan Hispanic residents are born elsewhere than in the U.S., with 73% of that group born in Mexico. The Washtenaw ID Project is a plan to give every county resident, regardless of birthplace, a county-issued photo ID. Do you support this project? Why or why not? Let's start with Mr. Robb.
Yeah, wow, these are like in my wheelhouse today. Thank you for these questions. Sunday at Papio's, there was a big event for the Washtenaw ID Project. I had the opportunity to speak to the people there, see a little lucha libre Mexican wrestling. Council, at the last meeting, we passed an ID, or a resolution in support of the ID project. I worked with Wicker and their kids on helping craft that, so absolutely I support that, and my vote is evidence of that.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Absolutely as well. I think that it's great in terms of safety. It's great in terms of just knowing who is in the county, who is around. I think that, regardless of where said person was born, it doesn't make a difference to me whether they were born here or outside of the U.S. As long as they the ID is very beneficial. I mean, it just immediately made me think of safety of residents in the community. So, absolutely.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Well, as a legal immigrant, I came here on a passport, on a visa. I applied for my driver's license, and I got my driver's license, so I have a picture ID so that I can vote. So basically, if you're from another country, just follow the basics. You don't really need to make a special trip to get another picture taken, except if they try to separate you from the rest of the community. Now, I worked with people from Mexico for over 30, 40 years, and the question never came up. I mean, one thing is after the statue over there in Germany, when the citizen moves into a new city, they have to go to the Census Bureau and sign in so that, in this house, this person lives there, and be recorded. So that's the only thing I could see we could do instead of just picture ID.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Weston?
Yes, I'm definitely for the idea project. I think it's a great idea that we have as many people identified as possible, and also the rights that you kind of have when you have an identification. Really, they help out a lot, and it's a huge deal. I know my little brother, 3 big brothers, big sisters, struggled to get his ID forever, and it just limited him to, he couldn't catch a check, he couldn't do a million different things. So I really understand that struggle without having an ID. And an additional note, I went to Economic Resilience Forum we had here at Eastern recently, And there was a large study done on the Hispanic population in Washtenaw County, and there was a lot of very interesting figures that come out of it, specifically looking at overall trends that many of the youth in our city, in our area going forward are going to be Hispanic. So I think we need to kind of get ahead of the curve if we can with that, specifically with making things easily dual languaged. Even at the city level, we could take care of that quite easily.
Thank you. All right, we're going to continue to explore the issue of immigration, but in a different sense. If we think about immigration in general, as in new families choosing to live in Ypsilanti, one major factor that may arguably be limiting immigration is the quality of Ypsilanti schools. An analysis by the Michigan Department of Education found that all Ypsi community schools listed in the report performed at or beneath the 8th percentile statewide, whereas the majority of schools in Ann Arbor, a district which participates in the Schools of Choice program, scored between the 80th and 99th percentile. What, if anything, can the city do about this, and what are the roles of public, private, and charter schools? Let's start with Ms. Brown.
Well, I believe that the thing that city council members and the different, staffing and municipality staff can do is just to civically engage young people. They need to be civically engaged. I'm an example of that. As a teenager, I went to city council meetings. I presented at city council meetings about the things that were important to young people and the things that are important to my peers. And because of that, I sit here now and I'm trying to be engaged as an adult in the community that I choose to live in. So I think that that's really important as far as just getting young people civically engaged and getting them rejuvenated and revitalized and in love with their community again from a different standpoint outside of just education.
Thank you. Mr. Robb?
Yes, as someone who has a partner who works for the Detroit Public School System, I have to say that I am not a big fan of charter schools. City Council is all about creating policy, and city staff is about implementing policy. The only interaction we necessarily have with the schools when it comes to policy we create is our school liaison officer. As far as individuals, I think it's our duty to promote the schools, to encourage families and residents and neighbors to send their kids to the schools. But the biggest thing you can possibly do is you can become informed on the election coming up here in November. There are 2 slates running, and you either vote for one slate because you think they've done a good job for the past 2 years since they merged, or you vote for the new slate and hopefully they can move the school district forward.
Thank you. Mr. Weston?
So as a citizen, this means the most to me. I am very involved with the kids in the schools. I've ran programs with the YMCA. Actually, I ran programs with Nicole as well at Ozone House, Big Brothers Big Sisters, just to name a few. I currently also am working through Eastern Leaders Group to help the schools decide what to do with their vacant properties. Additionally, I'm working with them to help market the school district as a whole. So these are things that I've elected to do just as a citizen with no political engagement, not as a council member, but just because I care and I want to use my talents to help better our schools and better our city. And so I've made a lot of progress through this group and this committee, and hoping that some of those things will prove out here very shortly. In short, I love these kids. I love these schools. As city council member, I will find every way I can to bridge these gaps and make this the school system and the school district and the city that we want it to be.
Thank you. And Ms. Melvin?
Well, as a grandma, I'm not that much in school, but I can say that my daughters-in-laws did a fantastic job. My 3 grandkids were homeschooled, and at age 16, they had Schoolcraft College. So maybe our school system has to get more to the learning part instead of all the other parts, because I'm not in school, so I can't tell you. And also, I would like to see more languages taught in school from kindergarten on up. In Egypt, a 7-year-old child learns 3 languages. And anybody right now wants to go to college in Germany, Germany is free. Your tuition doesn't cost you anything.
Thank you. Let's move to question 8, and this is something concerning council itself. The recent resignation of Councilwoman Susan Muller has left council with a unique situation. One unopposed candidate is running for one position as a Ward 2 representative. How will the remaining vacant Ward 2 position be filled? Let's start with Ms. Melvin.
I have no idea what that question is.
The question is about, it's a vacancy in Ward 2 and how the mechanism will be to fill that position.
Well, the two of us running for Ward 2, so I don't understand the question.
You're Ward 1, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I don't have an answer for the question, so
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weston?
any volunteers to run for Ward 2?
So, as I loosely understand it through reading through charter, there won't be an election previous to this election for that seat because she has resigned within 90 days of the council turning over. My other understanding is that we could either hold a special election as a council, we could elect to do that, or we could essentially all agree to bring somebody on. The nice thing about the current mayor and I's relationship and some other members of council that I feel good about is that I feel we can work together towards really figuring out some problems and figuring out how to best fill this seat with the possible people out there. And not only that, but engage this person and say, we want you to be part of this winning team that we're going to put together here to bring Ypsilanti to a better place. Come with us.
Thank you. Mr. Robb?
Yeah, it's a very simple question. We have until December 16th to fill the vacancy. I mean, that's by law, so.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Brown?
Well, I think that it could be a mixture of the two. I think that we should hear from the people, the voice of the people who they may think would be a good fit for this position. And then with that, having a conversation with council as well about maybe from that group, that pool of people who we also believe might be a good fit, and then kind of working on that together as a unit with the community members and our constituents as well as the council to choose that person by December 16th.
Thank you. Question 9 deals with an event that's been happening over this past summer that generated a lot of discussion in town. Question 9, the Heritage Festival has complained about the amounts of various charges and fees that it pays to the city in order to produce the event. Should the city waive some of the fees for the Heritage Festival? Let's start with Ms. Brown.
Well, I think that it's twofold. On one hand, I do believe that the city needs the revenue. So the fees that they're paying for the festival are helping and benefiting the city. On the other hand, on a more personal note, I think that the Heritage Festival is so amazing, and it's something that is really the heart of Ypsilanti. And if we wanted to keep going and, you know, to continue with the limited funds that they do have, then that may be something that we would look at, either lowering some of the fees, maybe not completely getting rid of them, but trying to pick and choose which ones or what fees for different things need to be kept and what can kind of be done away with.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Why don't we go to Mr. Weston?
So I think this is a question of what's most important. Is it most important that we, as a city, generate revenue from our park systems that we all pay taxes for? Or is it more important that we have the festivals that our community really wants and things that are free events to our community that are part of our community? So that is the question. That's a question for council. And I'd like to come through a thought process on that to really evaluate what is more important. Is it more important that we get maybe it'd be $5,000, or is it more important that we support our community with something that they're already paying for? You know, it's a tough question, and I don't know the exact answer to it, but I'd like to work through City Council to come up with a smart answer for it because I think they deserve it.
Thank you. And Ms. Melvin?
Well, we have all the charity and foundations around at Arbor and Ypsilanti, so maybe we can appeal for a grant there, then we don't have to take it out of the city budget.
Thank you very much. Mr. Robb?
Yeah, can you repeat that question one last time?
Absolutely. Question 9. The Heritage Festival has complained about the amount of the various charges and fees that it pays to the city in order to produce the event. Should the city waive some of that cost for the Heritage Festival?
We had the sheriff come out to the last meeting as the result of some of my dogged going after different fees, and was able to get the sheriff to waive the dispatch fee. So the Heritage Festival saved $2,700 this year as a result of my efforts. In the past 2 years, I've voted against the fee schedule. The fee schedule needs to be fixed. It needs to be right-sized. The whole idea, and that's the frustrating thing about some of the things that have happened as a result of this. Everyone adopted the fee schedule, and then they want to go back and waive fees for this event. We need to right-size the fee schedule, and my commitment to Mr. Clark was we were going to get him around $18,000, and that's about where we're going to come in this year.
Thank you. All right, we're at question 10. Question 10, let's start with Mr. Weston. All of you have been running for candidacy for City Council. In your position as a candidate for City Council, what do your critics say about you? Mr. Weston?
My critics, I would say, first of all, that I haven't lived in the city long enough. Although I've lived in the city for just a little over a year, I've lived in the area and the township for much longer, and been engaged in the city in some really tactile levels, in the schools, with economic development, at the city level, working downtown, and selling all the houses in my neighborhood and the surrounding area. I've sold 135 houses in 3.5 years, majority of which are in our city and our township. So that is something that somebody might have a complaint about, that I don't have that time that I've spent in my neighborhood. But I've spent a lot of time in my neighborhood, and it's been very quality, and the engagements that I have through it have been very rewarding to me. And now these people are paying me back by putting my signs in their yard. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Robb?
Yeah, I actually love campaigning. It's the best way to talk to people and meet with people. I guess the thing that people would criticize me the most about is that I'm intense, and I make no apologies for that. I've represented the people of the 3rd Ward with incredible intensity for the past 8 years. I expect my colleagues, I expect city staff to have the same respect and the same interest for your concerns. And I suppose if people criticize me for anything, it's because I'm abrasive, because I'm out there working for you.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Well, I guess the only thing I have against myself and from criticism is probably I'm too old. But then I got the time and I got this thing going, so it's got to get done. It's got to get done. I've been on City Council. I've been to all the senior agencies, Blueprint for Aging, and SAW and all this stuff, up to Rutledge, up to the president, and nobody's moving. So I got to get it done. So I need a job and I need a title, I guess.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Ms. Brown?
Well, I guess the critics would say I'm too young. But I say that, this gives me an opportunity to bring new life to the council. It gives me the opportunity to bring a lot of voices with me in my age group and give voices to the voiceless, power to the powerless, be the face and the voice for those people. And that's the main stake and the reason why I wanted to run, was to bring a fresh perspective, a fresh voice, a new face, and an ability to be that person to voice those things and those opinions of those people who are not seen or not heard.
Thank you very much. That completes the 10 questions that we prepared for these candidates. And you've also written some questions on note cards, which I have up here. I'm going to go through as many as we can tonight and give each candidate a chance to answer each of your questions. Let's start with this one. What do you feel is the tone of current City Council, and how would you either keep it the same or change it? Let's start with Ms. Brown.
Tone of current City Council. Well, I would say that you have a lot of difference of opinion, but that's okay. That's what it's going to take to get things done. You don't want everyone to be on the same wavelength all the time. You won't see change that way. What I would change would be just to make sure that, we are looked at as a cohesive, and that we're working together as a team, and that we're not seen separated, and that we're not, vying for our own personal beliefs and personal agendas, and that we're working for the betterment of the community and its people in general, and make sure that our community members see that. We may be doing that internally, but making sure that the community at large sees that.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Well, I've been in front of city council a couple of times in the last couple of years, and I haven't accomplished much, so I would like to get things done and a little faster. You know, when the Americans came over to Europe, they brought with them the Marshall Plan and rebuilt the whole country in 5 years. And what we got? We need the Marshall Plan over here and get a new city and get things going. We can't wait forever. You know, so it's like, let's do it now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Weston?
So sorry, I thought you were going to Mr. Robb next. I apologize.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so I really want to echo Ms. Brown's statements. I feel like we need to have a real cohesive feel to council. One where when you walk in, you know it's a team and they respect each other, and that they have an idea of what they want for the future of the city, and that they can, hold each other accountable, but in a respectful manner and tone. I see there being a lack of that right now. There's some subdivided things in council, and overall, I just don't feel that we are projecting a very good image of our city at the city council meetings. It needs a lot of work, and also it needs some improvement in the professionalism area as well.
Thank you. Mr. Robb?
Prior to me getting elected, there were a lot of 7-0 votes. There was a lot of cohesiveness on council, and that cohesiveness got us pension issues, it got at Water Street problems, it got us zoning problems. After I got elected, we had a lot of interesting discussion. We did have 4-3 votes for the first 2 years, and I'm very pleased with the tone of council. I think we get a lot of things done. I think we have spirited debates, and I think there's a lot of engagement and information passed around.
Thank you. Here's another one of your questions. What are your plans to curb some of the crimes that are taking place in Ypsilanti? Let's start this time with Mr. Robb.
Yeah, if everyone's around this Thursday at Sparky's, we're going to have a public safety forum. Police chief will share some information about that. What I think we need to focus on is I think we need to focus on gun crimes. I think we need to focus on going after warrants. I think we need to focus on more traffic stops. In the past couple of years, there's been more gun crimes than I'd like to see in the city, and I think that needs to be our focus in order to reduce crime in the city.
Thank you. Mr. Weston?
When I was a young man, I was riding my red Huffy. I was about 8 years old, and I was riding my Huffy down the street, and I, for some reason, wanted to hit my front foot on the tire, and so I did that, and I fell really hard, and I bashed my chin open, and it was just blood everywhere. My parents weren't very close by. Just so happened, this police officer was driving by at the time. His name was Officer Corky, and I knew him because his wife had babysat for me. And he swooped me up and went and found my parents and drove me to the hospital, got stitches, everything was well. I want our police officers to know our kids. I want to see them on my street. I don't see them walking around. I just want to walk around and just shake their hand and see them and be present in my community. I want to see them at my schools. I want to see them. And I want to be friends with them too. And there's a bunch of stuff that I want to tell them, like, hey, this thing's going on, this thing's going on. I want our police officers to live in our city too. And I want to do whatever I can to encourage that growth as well.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
I agree with Mr. Weston. I think that I would like to see our police in the community. I want to see them talking to people. I want to see community policing being done and increased. I want to see our young people engaged. I want to see them working with them, mentoring them, stronger mentorship. Just doing things that we know work. Being face-to-face, talking to people, not just being there when you're going to arrest them, not just being there when it's time to pull them over, but being there to teach them things and be another role model for them. I want to see the community work as a community, as a group, everyone included, with police included. So.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Well, I agree with everybody that we need more walking policemen. And they don't really have to be a policeman. We can hire the veterans, which are already paid for by the VA. They're trained by the federal government. They know how to handle people and things. So we should give our veterans a job and hire them. And they'll be up and down the streets. They probably could even wear their old uniforms, Yeah, hey, this way kids know, oops, somebody's watching us, you know. And, you know, want to make it a friendly city. I walk, well, most of the time just Michigan Avenue, and so when I talk to the kids, matter of fact, this fellow was brushing his teeth yesterday, and I said, you know what you're brushing your teeth with? And he kind of looked at me, he said, yeah, that's fluoride. That's rat poison. Oh. So I talk to them, and, you know, and then sometimes they just walk up and just say something, or hi, or, you know, you'd be surprised. And there's one fellow that, sorry.
Thank you. Next question goes back to some council issues. An audience member asks, Ypsilanti has historic issues with transparency on council. How will you work to improve city transparency? Let's start with Mr. Weston.
So I personally am an open book. The nice thing about our city and working downtown and living where I live and having the neighbors that I have and the relationships I have with the business owners and all the people that I've sold houses to is they know me and I know them too. We can talk and I will listen. I'm a great listener. If you want to engage with me, I'm here. So I can be transparent with people because I'm transparent. I'm here. I'm in the community. I'm doing things. I know your kids. I sold your house. You know, I went and helped out with your flower beds.
Yep, you sure
These
did.
kind of things. So
I got a garden growing.
so I am in my nature transparent, and I will communicate that transparency to our citizens.
Thank you. And Ms. Brown?
Well, I think along with being a people person, and I know that, you know, being in the community and talking to my constituents and the community members is going to be a great way to be transparent, but also being the fact that I am their voice. So being their voice, there would be no issue with transparency because things that we're talking about are going to be the things that they want me to be talking about. They want us to be talking about. So with that being said, making sure that I'm bringing the needs of, you know, the ones in my ward and in the greater city area to the table, and then bringing that information back to them in whichever ways that I need to, whether it be email, phone call, or at their doorstep. I'm just doing whatever needs to happen to make sure that that flow of communication is open always.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Well, in our building, we have regular coffee hour Mondays and Fridays from 9 to 11. So you can come and knock on the door and tell me your problems, and I'll try to get it fixed. And hopefully, when I find out all the rules they have at the council, I can do it and get things done.
Thank you. Mr. Robb?
Yeah, prior to getting elected, I had no idea that we had things called council information letters. And once I got elected and I got my first one, I realized what it was and I posted it to the web, and that seemed to upset a lot of people. But I think I've been a pioneer for transparency in the past 8 years. Everything I get usually goes up on the web. Very friendly with the press as far as getting them the information they need to get out there to the residents. Transparency is always used as a cudgel. You know, it's easy to say that people aren't transparent. City council needs to we could work on some transparency, but where we've come in the past 8 years is remarkable. The information that's now available to citizens compared to as it was before.
Thank you. All right, the next question deals with one of the more controversial issues in town. And as at the mayoral forum, I'm going to paraphrase this. It says, since there was such a public outcry about the low-income housing, Water Street Flats, what is your opinion of the project? Should we not listen to the stakeholders? Let's start with Ms. Melvin.
Oh, my favorite subject, low-income housing. Well, I was at the city council meeting when they discussed the McKinley project they're going to put in there. Well, it's not low-income housing, it's taxpayers' money that's being invested. And any time a company uses HUD money, which is taxpayers' money, there's a kind of law in the books that 30% of the people in there have to be subsidized. Because I really hate that word low income, because there's nothing low, well, there's low income, yeah. But the thing is, if we would raise wages where people could afford to live decent, and the landlord doesn't take advantage of this pilot program, then we all could bring up a certain standard of living. Because if people don't want the minimum wages raised, well, how do they expect the other side of the fence to live?
Thank you.
You know.
Mr. Robb?
everyone loves to look at Water Street in the abstract, like the $15 million worth of debt does not exist. I'm the only person up here on council. I actually voted for this, and I can defend this all day long. The interesting thing about this is this project gets us 40% of the road infrastructure. It's a $12 million development in our community. It's affordable housing. 60% of the people who live in this city would be allowed to live there. It is not low-income housing by any means. You know, it's easy to be the candidate of no, but you know, what my opponent here needs to explain is how he would come up with the 40% of the infrastructure for the rest of the project if he were to be against this. Now, the interesting thing about this is this makes the rest of the project more valuable because the infrastructure will be there. It's cheaper to pull utilities off the roads. The road infrastructure doesn't need to be built by new developers. It makes, we will be able to sell the frontage for more money if this project happens.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Well, I believe that, you know, it's necessary. I think there is a need. I think that in order for our young people and their families to thrive, you have to have somewhere to live. So therefore, I'm definitely for it. I think that, you know, the way that our community is set up, you can clearly see the divide and the differences. And I think that there needs to be a level playing field and there needs to be opportunity for everyone to live feasibly and affordably. So whether it's low-income housing or not, I just think that it's necessary so that everyone has a safe, you know, place and affordable place to live.
Thank you. Mr. Weston?
I specifically don't like this style of affordable housing. This exact same style was right up the road from us at Ford Lake Village. This style works in a way where an investor, Bank of America in this case, uses tax credits to pay itself back over the course of 15 years, 10 years sometimes. The way it works at iteration is that we say that it's affordable housing and that this certain type of people can afford it. This, you know, 60% of people in our area. The way it ends up, moreover, is that the entire community ends up, in the case of Ford Lake Village, being Section 8 occupied. So if we want this building to be Section 8 occupied completely in 15 years, then that's what we will get with this project. We have no reason to think of anything else. And I know that we can get a better developer. The infrastructure thing is not that big a deal. We can find somebody that will do this whole thing and bring the product that we all need and deserve.
Thank you. Another audience question. What is your stake in ensuring that our young people in Ypsi are engaged? And what experience do you have engaging young people in the city? Let's start with Ms. Brown.
Well, majority of my experience comes in that lane. I have worked extensively with young people stemming from my work at Eastern Michigan University as a young person into moving into the position of the director of that said program, Ypsilanti Youth Empowered to Act, for 2 years during my stay as a student at Eastern Michigan University. Also, I have worked with Ozone House as an outreach coordinator. I have worked collaboratively with numerous of nonprofit organizations and organizations in Washtenaw County in general, not even just the city of Ypsilanti, to engage our young people. And my stake in it at this point is, as I previously stated, to civically engage them, to mentor them, to be in the schools, to be visible, to be present, to make sure that they too are able to be in this position later on and continue the work that we're trying to do as a council and as a city.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Well, I don't really have too much experience now that my grandkids are teenagers. So, in the place I live, I have a lot of old people, up to 104, so they keep me kind of busy. So I'm taking care and seeing what we can do and how to feed them, how to close them, how to call the doctor, and where are the grandkids, and how come your car don't start? No, I don't have nothing to eat. You know where I left my keys? So I have a full-time job taking care of my neighbors.
Thank you. Mr. Weston?
Can you repeat the question again? I'm so
Absolutely.
sorry.
What is your stake in ensuring that our young people in Ypsilanti are engaged? And what experience do you have engaging young people in the city?
So 6 years ago, I started the YMCA program at Adams as a volunteer program. Later, I was hired to bring that program throughout the elementary schools in our district. After that, I started 2 Special Olympics basketball teams, one here in Arbor, one in Ypsilanti. I've been on various nonprofit boards. I'm currently on one, which is Mentor to Youth, which engages mentorship here in our community schools. On every level I possibly can be, I am engaging with youth. From the board levels to me being a big brother and big brothers, big sisters, to mentorship, to leadership, to creating programs for them. I also ran a Fitness Fridays program at Ozone House. Nobody encouraged me to do it. I just did it because I know these kids needed it. And that's where I am today, and that's where I'll continue to be. I'm trying to bridge these gaps and engage these children in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Robb?
Yeah, I want to answer this basically from a policy perspective. What we've done on City Council in the past couple of years is we have funded the local playgrounds. We recently did the Charles Street Tot Lot. I believe this weekend they're going to finish off Candy Cane Park. Last year we did Park Ridge Park. Along with Mr. Barfield, we've been able to fund Park Ridge Community Center. Council's role is policy, and I believe that those are the actions that we should be taking to engage the youth.
Thank you. All right, and another question about the fire department. An audience member asks, has there been any investigation of a volunteer fire department with some professional supervising personnel? Let's start with Mr. Robb.
Yeah, we looked at that because there's volunteer on call, and we have. I represent council on the Washington area Metro Alliance, and when we were talking all about fire services, that was something we discussed. I believe Ann Arbor Township has a paid on call fire department. I believe there's even some paid on call over in Pittsfield. But when you talk to the supervisor of Ann Arbor Township, those types of organizations do not work. We've already made our decision that we're going to have a full-time fire department here in the city of Ypsilanti. We've investigated that and put that to rest. It's not in the best interest for our residents.
Thank you. Mr. Weston?
As I don't know the inner workings of this as it applies, because I'm not currently on council, I can't answer that question specifically. However, I would say, innovative ways to do things is the way to go. There's no other option. If we're looking at a situation where we have some serious amounts of money due to fire and police and major budgets for them, then we also need to look at ways to make that budget less in any way possible. Whether it's engaging through a volunteer fire organization, combining with Ypsilanti Township or the surrounding townships, or whatever it may be, we need to think really hard about it, because if we don't, we're not being the stewards we need to be to our city and our citizens.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
I as well am not currently on council, so I can't speak to what has already been done, but I can say that if the conversation needs to be revisited, then we should revisit it. If there is more that we can do to research and see if it is feasible for us, or if there are other ways or innovative ways to do it, then we should. If not, we can look at other ways that we can use the funds that we have and minimally, not tax our budget as even more than it already is. I think that we absolutely need to just find ways to use what we have, and also use people who are willing to help and assist in ways that are going to be beneficial to our community at large.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Well, when you say volunteer, it means getting on the fire truck and going to the fire?
I can't speak for this person's question.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is what part of fire department
Sometimes
you want
in rural
work
areas.
as a volunteer. You can answer the phone and tell them where to go, but that's the knowledge of the fire department. They now taking care of ambulances too, so they're doing CPR at the same time the fire department does.
Any other comments you'd like to add to that, Ms. Melvin?
No, because that's the question, because volunteer is fine, but what part of the job? And you don't want to get somebody volunteer to come to the fire and they don't know how to turn on the water, And nowadays all these fires go too quick, so you need to have a professional staff there all the time, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, one question from the audience is on an upbeat note. How do you think Ypsi can get more residents taking pride in their city? The young people in particular of the city. Let's start with Mr. Weston.
So I think this comes back to a question that came up earlier about the current tone at City Council and the current divisiveness as I see it as a citizen. So what we can do is be excited about being at City Council. What we can do is be an awesome team that's celebrating victories inside of our team. Everybody likes to see people that are given high fives. Everybody wants to be a part of a business that's successful. And if we're not doing that at the City Council level, if we're not showing that success there through leadership, then it won't happen anyplace else. We can all do it in silos at the school or through politics or individually, but if there's no leadership at the governance of our city to encourage good growth and encourage good things, then good things will just die out.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Well, I think that we need to start by, continuing the different beautification projects that have been going on in the community, continue doing the things that have already been done. I've seen numerous things that have been done around Ypsilanti that make me happy and make me smile and make me point it out to different people who are not from here. I also think that we should also, again, engage young people and have them be advocates for their own city, have them have that love and that joy for their city they may have for, their friends or their family or, their home. Having them along with other adults as mentors, going and helping and assisting people who may not have the ability to beautify their own front yards, cut their grass, plant flowers, just do different things that keep them engaged, keep our hands to the ground and keep us working, but also in turn helps the city and makes the city look great. When you look great, you feel great. So make sure our city looks great and then we'll feel great.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Well, a couple of years back, they had this headline in the fashion industry, "Dress for Success." Well, right now you look at the young people, students, I don't think there's anybody dressed for success. I think the city and the college should get together and work out a system where our people are dressed for success, young people, because I see them on the streets and, well, I was in the fashion business for 40 years, so needless to say, it's not very fashionable. But I like to put pride back in and be somebody, and then maybe even have a contest, who's once months who's the best dressed person, so just bring it back.
Thank you. Mr. Robb?
Yeah, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. How do you think Ypsilanti can get more residents taking pride in their city, the young people in particular of the city?
Yeah, as a result of the Great Recession, we reduced the fire and police departments, and we've slowly built those back up. As I said, Thursday is the Public Safety Forum. The chief will talk about that. What we need to do is we need to re-engage, re-establish the neighborhood association organization. Some of the neighborhood associations are still strong. They're not as strong as they once were, perhaps 5 or 6 years ago. And we need to get back to doing those kinds of things. The Historic East Side Neighborhood Association was one of the strongest neighborhood associations in the city. We did incredible projects in Prospect Park. But as far as other policies that we've done the Adopt a Park program. The Charles Street Tot Lot was a great success. All the neighbors, all the young neighbors from that neighborhood got involved, and we had a 10-hour build day over the summer. So I think by continuing with those policies, we can continue to engage the neighbors.
Thank you. All right, let's go through a few more questions. One is, how can the city better serve the Spanish-speaking community? Let's start with Ms. Melvin.
Well, they could bring the Latin Festival back. About, 4 or 5 years ago, we had it. Then it came the Heritage, but I guess we don't have any sponsors, so we can't bring it back. But we have the Mexican restaurant right there, and we have the Mexican grocery store. So I like to see that area cleaned up to bring up to a standard, so it's more inviting to the rest of the city.
Thank you. Mr. Robb?
Yeah, 3 members of council, Mayor Pro Tem Richardson, myself, and Councilmember Murdoch, we helped the Wicker organization craft some resolutions for council. They came and presented to us at the last meeting. I think we are trying to engage the Hispanic community. We're going to have a resolution come back. We're going to have a resolution come back to us about police activities. as far as those things go. So I think we're taking steps to engage those, and 3 out of the 7 council members have stepped up to do such a thing.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
I would say that we need to engage organizations that already exist, make sure that we, support them, advocate for them, work with them, as well as make sure that the community is educated on culture. I mean, it's important to me to be a global citizen. So make sure that you know not only things about your own culture and that it translates from both sides so that everyone has an understanding of each other. I think that's the biggest thing that we need to do is make sure that people are educated. I mean, once you're educated, then there's numerous and endless things that you can do working together if you understand one another.
Thank you. Mr. Weston?
I think to engage in dialogue, to find out what the problems are and how the city can be a partner and solution to those problems is probably the number one place to start. And it's great that I have seen some things with City Council recently regarding the Hispanic population. I don't know if there's been a level of engagement just to ask how or why or what are the top issues you're facing? How can we as a city specifically address those? I don't know if those questions have been asked, but those are the questions I would ask as a city council member and as a steward of our city, because I definitely want to engage with everybody here that has a need. So I need to hear that need and understand it, and hopefully as a city we can find ways to address those needs. So I think understanding the problem is the beginning to the solution for the Hispanic population's representation.
Thank you. Here's a question that is from an audience member. Well, let's do a few more. This audience member asks, what's happening to the Ford property? Mr. Robb?
Yeah, that was purchased several years ago by Angstrom. They intended to move production from Taylor to there, and that has not happened. So they are in the process of marketing that for sale and also perhaps making that a manufacturing incubator. And so our planning staff, the city manager, are engaged with them as far as what opportunities they have.
Thank you. Mr. Weston?
Yeah, so I know, much like Mr. Robb stated, that it has been owned by this gentleman for quite some time and it's up for lease or for sale. I think the bigger solution is to find a way to get our city out in the forefront of people that are looking to purchase properties or looking to develop properties, looking to bring businesses places. Our current culture, our city is not really quite saying that. It's not saying, come bring your business here, we love you. Come bring your development here, we want to work with you to make this happen. Here are the citizens, here's what they want, here's our talented workforce, come work with us. I don't feel like that communication level is up there, and we need to do a lot of work on marketing our city to these people and finding what kind of keywords engage them on the national level and international level to be able to allow places like this to be able to come fruitful again for our community.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Well, I believe that we need to, continue to research ways that we can utilize the space, talk about ways that it's going to be beneficial to the community. So that goes back to the underlying thing that I think I've been speaking on this entire time is communicating with the community members about what they want to see there or what could possibly be there. And having those options and having those conversations. It doesn't mean that that's going to happen, but having the conversation and trying to make it fit best to what our needs are here in the community already.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Well, our governor went to China to bring back jobs. Our governor went to Europe and to Israel, so maybe we should contact him and see what jobs he came back so we can sell them to Lansing.
Thank you. All right. We're going to take time for one more of your questions. This is the last question of the night. How important do you think establishing and maintaining relationships with local nonprofits are? What will you do on City Council to help change the perception of Ypsilanti? Let's start with Mr. Weston.
So the first question was, what will I do to engage nonprofits? Is that correct? I'm so sorry, because there's two questions.
There were two questions. I should have split them up, actually.
That's okay.
The first question is, how important, let's just do the first question.
Okay.
How important do you think establishing and maintaining relationships with local nonprofits are?
I think it's extremely important. Obviously, being somebody that's on nonprofit boards, and I've served on many, and somebody that engages on a weekly basis with a nonprofit organization of some sort, I understand the importance of them and that they're filling the gap for the vacancies left, unfortunately, by our schools and by our society. If we don't engage with that sector in a very specific kind of way, then we're really missing out on the engagement of somebody who's on the front lines of problems in our city on every level, whether it be financial, family, health. All of these things are things that fall underneath nonprofits. And these are the people that really know what's going on. These are the people who are working with people that are in the toughest situations. And moreover, are the people that are trained in social work and understand how to come to a good question and answer session to find out what the real problems are. So in a continued engagement in a very direct way from the city, even in some type of way to bring them into either a committee or to form a way to get this communication to us so we can best understand how to serve our city and our needs, because we can't be everywhere.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Well, okay. I think that the number one, we do need to, of course, support nonprofits, absolutely. I mean, I am a social worker. I work for a nonprofit, so of course, all my previous jobs have been for nonprofits. I think that council needs to take the time to leave the chamber and go and be present with different nonprofits and work with these leaders that are out there, because the nonprofits are mainly the ones who are engaging our children at this point, the ones who are engaging our community members at this point. So you have to show them support. We have to not only wait for them to come to us, but we need to go to them. We need to speak to them and see what the needs are and where we can meet their needs, and where sometimes maybe they can assist us and meet some of ours, and really work collaboratively together. I think working together is the number one thing that we as a council would need to do with the existing nonprofits that are in our community.
Thank you. Ms. Melvin?
Yeah, I agree. We need a nonprofit, and they can help us a lot, especially where city council and some other agencies lack in support, so they can back us up. It'd be nice if we had like a once a month meeting with a nonprofit, and they can tell us what's available in grants or loans, or which areas to attack. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Robb, you have the last word tonight.
Yeah, can you repeat that question?
Yes. How important do you think establishing and maintaining relationships with local nonprofits are?
I think I would answer that question in a different way. As opposed to narrowing the focus down to nonprofits, I would just expand that scope out to the partners of the community, the businesses, the residents, and things like that. I think it's important to have partnerships, and it's important to engage with everybody. I think this question was a little too narrow when it came to nonprofits. Our city staff, our city council, our DDA should be engaging with the businesses of the area and things like that. It shouldn't just be limited to certain sections and segments.
Thank you so much. All right, that concludes the portion of tonight's forum. I'd like to ask everyone to please have a round of applause for our candidates who took time out of their night to come here tonight. And at this time, we'll have some closing statements from Ben and from Nancy.
Oh, from us. Oh, I thought you were going to give them closing statements. Okay. Thank you to the candidates for, first of all, putting themselves forward to do civic duty. That's wonderful, and thank you for being here tonight. And to our audience, for the citizens, for having the interest in what is happening in your community. Tomorrow night, the League will be sponsoring a candidate forum on Ann Arbor's Community Television Network program for the Washtenaw Community College Board of Trustees. You might be interested in that. And then a week from Friday, we're sponsoring a forum at the University of Michigan for the U of M Regents, for whom we get to vote. And most of us don't know a thing about any of them. So that will be on October 24th. In addition, back on the table, there are voter guides that have information on all of the state offices, the Supreme Court, the Senates, your House reps, all of that, if you would like to take one of those. And then online, we have an online voter guide, vote411.org. You go to that site, enter your address, And all of the information from the national election on down to your county commissioners, your city council members, all of their statements, if they have responded, are on there as well. So as I said, our role is to try to give you information that you need. So please take advantage of that.
And
Okay, we thank you.
Oh yeah, and I just want to say again, thank you everybody for coming. Thanks for the council candidates, the audience. Thanks so much for the city and the senior center for hosting us. Thank you to Jamie Berlin and Marta Valadez for helping with the note cards. Thank you so much to Jesse Miller for running sound tonight. Thank you so much for Brad Perkins of Worm Farm Recordings for recording tonight. Thank you, Fritz Passo, for general helpfulness.
Wow.
Thank you.
Anybody you missed?
Well, Nancy and the whole rest of the League of Women Voters of the Ann Arbor area. Oh, and Lindsay for doing the time, and Laura for moderating, and the press for being here, and just all of you for being here. Thank you so much. This has been incredible.